right, so let's just dive into the NFL news because obviously season over. What's going on? We have a few things. Well, this week, Indianapolis is the Mecca center for the NFL because we have the NFL Rookie Combine, which has gotten bigger and bigger every year. Mm-hmm. I know Donnie Druin of Sports Illustrated and Fan Nation, he is there. He flew there today. He'll be there all week. He'll be taking in all the sights and scenes. You can check him out at Fan Nation and at Donnie Druin. He's been here a few times. You guys listen, you know him. Great stuff for the Cardinals, which with where they're at and them posting that tweet with Kyler Murray saying our franchise quarterback, like letting it be known that going into there should be no conversation as if the Cardinals are going to draft a quarterback going into this because for them to do that, that's kind of very, like as a social media team to post that out, you're going to do that this week, today.
They're just praying for Marvin Harrison Jr. That's all they're doing. Like they have a quarterback. Kyler kind of proved it the last few games. When he got back, they looked pretty good. Like you're like, okay. And again, pairing him with Marvin Harrison Jr., that's what they're hoping for. They don't need a quarterback. So yeah, but that is good to see. And
then of course, you're going to have guys that are going to rise through the ranks at the combine. You're going to have guys drop, whether it's for medical or it's for their interview or it's for a BS report about somebody's, cognitive skills. Remember, we saw that last year with C.J. Stroud. They basically said that he failed this test. And he might be one of the smartest quarterbacks we've seen.
Oh, my God.
You know what I mean?
Was it that they said sweat too much? That was basketball. That was Kawhi. Either way, it happens in these type of things.
So you have that.
Kawhi Leonard sweat too much, but, that happens that happens in football, too. Like, you hear those crazy stories.
Absolutely. So here's the big thing. They're going to go through medical. Caleb Williams, obviously, I think everybody thinks he's going to be the number one or, maybe the number two pick. Somebody might trade up to move up to get him. It remains to be seen. But him not throwing at the combine, Marvin Harrison Jr. not doing anything at the combine except for maybe interviews.
Right.
And he said he might not even work out at Ohio State's pro day. If you know you're a top 5 pick, what is the reason to go do any of that? There's risk in getting hurt. They know what you can do. Honestly, when you're a top 5 pick, unless you have baggage, unless you have some off the field issues, which you have to, subdue with, interviews and showing up and doing all the right things. But these guys have learned. I used to get upset about the guys taking off and not playing the bowl game. You know what I mean? It's like you're with your brothers the whole year. Your team's fighting for national championship or potentially, and you're going to be a top 5 pick or top 10, and you don't play. I get it because you're protecting yourself and your future, and the coaches always say the right things, but as a fan, it used to bother me. It doesn't bother me anymore.
Look, yeah. I was going to say, though, as a team, as a GM, as a scout, whatever, all these guys who do want to see these guys perform in the combine, in the pro days, Marvin Harrison doesn't bother me. We've seen it. It's on tape. Yep. He lived up to his expectations this year. Caleb didn't.
He had a down year compared to the year before.
He has more to prove. I would be a little disappointed from him not performing at the combine. Hopefully he will be at USC Pro Day or something. I want to see him. If I'm a GM, somebody who's a coach, somebody who's got a say in the number 1 pick, the number 2 pick, where he's likely to go. I want to see Caleb throw. But I'm
sure he will throw it at his pro day because he wants to be there for his guys. But with Marvin Harrison Jr., he didn't have a guy. He doesn't need anybody throwing to him. Yeah, his quarterback transferred to Syracuse.
Yeah. No, but still, I wonder if Caleb, I get it. I hope he throws on the pro day and because again, it's either confirmation. There's a little risk for him performing because right now people are saying he's the number 1 pick, right? A lot of people are saying he's rumored to be the number 1 pick. So if he has a bad combine or a bad pro day, all he can do is slip, right?
Right.
So, I get why he might not want to perform, and I still think there's a possibility he might not. But if he goes to pro day, has his guys, they're in a groove together, and he shows out, then the people are going to go, all right. The Bears are going to go, all right, we're making the right pick with the number 1 pick.
I mean, and that's a whole other question. And do the Bears take a quarterback at what? I mean, it's one of those things that you have Justin Fields, he's a dynamic athlete. He has shown progress in his throwing ability. He has. They have some weapons around him. What if they just said, we're getting Marvin Harrison Jr. to pair with DJ Moore and to pair with Justin Fields, and we're going to take it for the next 2 years with Justin Fields. If let's say, for example, it doesn't work out, the Bears might be a destination for a veteran quarterback to go to because they have all these weapons.
Yeah.
And if they have the right personnel there, so if they have studs like Atlanta does, as soon as a quarterback figures it out to get down there, they are going to have really good offense. Yeah. I think that could happen in Chicago. I don't necessarily think I take the number 1 pick on a guy that you're not sure. You saw a guy in Caleb Williams Digress. His team fell down. There was multiple games this year where he had 4 or more turnovers.
Right.
Like, there are certain people that say, hey, that's nothing to worry about. Like, he's got the caliber and the talent. He does, for sure. I mean, he won a Heisman. And he's got the size, and he went the pedigree and all that stuff. Yes. At the same time, there's a lot of those guys that flame out.
Yeah. I'm not jealous of the Bears front office. I'm really not. Because with that decision, because Justin Fields deciding, like, are we committed to Justin Fields? Like, it's hard for me to
Who
say.
they didn't draft.
To say yes, right? Like, if I was the Bears GM, like, I'm committed to Justin Fields. And I'll admit, I haven't watched all the Bears games. I'm not, like, 100% versed on how he did and all his stats. But I am not a Justin Fields fan. I would be ready to move on. And I think if you're going to move on from him, you have to make that decision right now. And again, like with the quarterbacks that are in this draft, Caleb has won a Heisman. He did slip a little bit this year, but I think he's got a better arm. I don't think he's got the most arm talent in the draft, but I think it's better than Justin Fields. And to be honest, I like the Marvin Harrison idea because you need guys to catch these passes too. But first off, you need somebody who can throw the ball. And Caleb Williams is probably better than Justin Fields.
Potentially. I mean, listen, we're also judging a young kid who has had a couple of different coordinators, a couple of different coaches. He was already playing at Ohio State and transferring. He's been kind of a vagabond, so to speak, that he hasn't had any security. So now you're going to give him another year with this, and you saw improvement. He played very well at times. I think that there's an argument to keep him there.
Right.
But I think you'd have to ask the diehard Chicago Bears fans like the Mercadantes and them. They would be able to tell us.
Yeah.
They'd be able to tell us. All right. So on the other side, we're going to dive into a little bit more football. We've got NBA talk. We've got all kinds of stuff. You guys are listening to KDUS 1060 Phoenix, home of the Dan Patrick Show. Rich Eisen, and of course, James Out West featuring the Pat the Stat Guy. Make sure you guys come on back.
Welcome back to James Out West on KDUS 1060.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us into the night. James Out West, Pat the Stat Guy, Aaron on the other side of the glass. Got some good old NASCAR on Fox Sports 1. That's how deep.
Oh, yeah.
It's
The yellow car's winning.
The sports is a little dry. Beautiful Monday.
I thought that was a
evening.
pace car. That's actually.
No, that's actually the car.
Oh, wow.
That's Cindric. He's got a big lead. But you never know.
I was
drafting.
making a good joke. It was a horrible joke.
All right. So, was there anything you wanted to finish up as far as Chicago Bears were concerned with the idea of, Justin Fields or?
Well, yeah, because I mean, we just talked about it in the break. It kind of hit me. A few things hit me. Like I do like that idea. I mean, people are saying like all the news out of Chicago is that the Bears are going with Caleb, right? And we're saying like if you aren't sure about Caleb, maybe you can wait a year. You can wait a year. Give Justin Fields another year. Well, I think he's played 4 years. Like he still has that 5th year on his rookie contract. Like
right.
Like see what he does. Give him one more year, and then see what pops up in that draft. You were telling me about that. What is it, Paxton Lynch story with the Chiefs? About how the Chiefs were wanting to get Paxton Lynch, but they missed out on him, so they ended up getting Chris Jones, and then the next year drafted a quarterback named Pat Mahomes.
Like think about the trajectory of the NFL's legacy. If that happened.
Right.
If they drafted Paxton Lynch. Now, you know what, though? They maybe never would have gotten rid of Alex Smith.
Right.
Alex Smith maybe doesn't get hurt. Maybe those things. So it might be that it panned out for them, but think of all the tentacles there that happens from that one move or not getting it.
But tying that back to the Bears, like that's why, I'm not jealous of the front office because, like, you got to decide, do we make the move now with a guy like Caleb? We could get Caleb Williams now. Or do we wait a year, give Justin another year and wait? Because maybe maybe Justin is our guy. Or if Justin's not our guy, maybe our guy comes up next. You just never know. And then, one thing that you've kind of hit me to in the last couple of years is smoke screens. So now when I hear that this idea that, Chicago's going with Caleb Williams, it makes me wonder if maybe that's the opposite of what they're doing. And they're throwing that out to kind of throw people off.
And maybe they want to trade that pick. Maybe they want Washington to really move up and get it from them. So, hey, we're going to take your guy.
That would make sense.
We're going to take your guy. So
exactly.
You come up and give us a first round next year because you guys are going to stink again. And you can take your guy, and we're going to get all the other guys that we want right there. Bing, 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 whatever, So, I mean, there's so much that will happen. And like I said, I can't wait to talk to Donnie at the end of the week because what he's going to get from, probably the
you just convinced me. Like I think that's what's happening with Chicago. They're trying to trade that pick.
Well, let's stay okay. Let's stay in the NFC North because Kirk Cousins today was shown that he's been throwing, so his rehab is going really well. Obviously, there's a lot. He's an unrestricted free agent. I think we talked about this, earlier. He's
My
kind of
mom's freaking out.
established. Your mom's freaking out. He's established in Minnesota. Why would they don't have anybody waiting in the wings. They don't have a draft pick. There's nobody that is going to be a better fit for the Minnesota Vikings next year that is a free agent other than Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
There's nobody in the draft that's good enough or better than Kirk Cousins right now.
Yeah.
And the guy that took the job, one of the main reasons that they even interviewed him and he has a job is because of the quarterback. It's because of having Kurt there. So Kevin O'Connell, there's no way KOC is going to want to get rid of this. I can't, for the love of God, Jane, you can breathe easy. I think it'll be no issue with them re-signing him.
Yeah.
Now, it might only be a 3-year deal.
I got sad for a second thinking
I don't think he's going anywhere.
We could be going back to the Christian Ponder type years, man. That's what I call whenever I talk about being like the worst of being a Vikings fan, it's the Christian Ponder years.
Dude, don't talk about bad quarterback play in the Browns.
But yeah, either way, I don't know. I mean, I've been talking about this for a while. Like last year, I wanted the Vikings to make this decision last year. Are we keeping him or are we letting Kirk go? Because I basically wanted us to, commit to Kirk. Because again, or lose enough games so we could draft, Caleb Williams or somebody. Because again, we don't have anybody waiting in the wings, and we just, and we're middle of the pack as far as a team goes. So like as far as the draft, I mean, who's the kid out of Michigan? I forget. I think some people.
J.J. McCarthy?
Some people are like, right now, I think we're, people have us drafting J.J. McCarthy. You know what I mean? Like,
look, you guys might have somebody on the roster that is sort of not waiting in the wings, but could. And that could be Josh Dobbs. If Josh Dobbs was underneath, played the backup role, got the offense, obviously he understands the offense, but the nuances of it, being in the same space for a while, he might be.
Well, yeah.
He might be.
But no, obviously, like you said, the best option for the Vikings is to re-sign Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
You're not set up for the greatest draft pick. And, I get it. They waited to re-sign him, and then he tore his Achilles. So, there's a lot going on there. But, I thought they should have committed to him earlier. And so now you're in this situation, and they've got, he can go listen to other teams. He can go wherever he wants. And maybe some team outbids the Vikings, and now they have to figure something out at the QB position.
And he'd be foolish not to if a team wanted to meet with him. There's nothing wrong with going and meeting with a team that wants to see where you're at. That puts pressure on Minnesota, like you said, to pay up, do what you want to do.
Honestly, I'm hoping Kirk Cousins' kids are saying, "Oh, my best friends are here, Dad. I don't want to leave. I love him." That's our best hope. That's what I'm hoping for.
I think you guys are going to be just fine with him. Other NFL free agent news, obviously, because a lot of guys were this was the ability to tag people. We do know that Bengals tagged T. Higgins, do $21.3 million next year.
Nice.
That's his tag. Now I'm assuming they're going to try to work out a deal, but they know they got to pay Jamar Chase. Obviously Burrow got his, if I'm not mistaken. So, but you got Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. And the reason I mention those two is because it's Baltimore. And you wouldn't think, those are J.K. Dobbins, if he's healthy, is pretty good. Gus scores touchdowns, but they're not big names. But the reason I bring that up, ladies and gentlemen, is because those two guys being free agents, Tennessee explored trading Derrick Henry before the deadline to Baltimore this last season. Imagine Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. My goodness. So the fact they were thinking about trading him there, the free agencies kind of open it up. I could see Derrick Henry ending up with the Baltimore Ravens if there's mutual interest. You don't know what's going to happen with Eckler. He's more of a pass catcher, but in this league, they can do both things. Saquon Barkley, maybe he resigns in New York. Maybe he works something out. Maybe he goes somewhere else.
Right.
The Chargers, if they're going to let Eckler go, they're going to need somebody else, whether it's in the draft or through free agency.
Yeah.
Maybe they like Saquon better than Eckler. We'll pay you what we were going to pay Eckler, what he's asking for. We'll give you 13 to 15 over, whatever. Absolutely. I could see that happening for sure.
Yeah, so, well, when I kind of look at this list of top free agents and I look at him, I do think the running backs are more likely to end up with another team. Like you said, Henry and Eckler, and especially with just how the running back position's been treated the last few years. But a lot maybe Kirk Cousins goes somewhere else. I'm praying he doesn't, but I think Chris Jones, ends up with the Chiefs. I think a lot of these guys, Josh Allen's, the Jaguars keep him around. Christian Wilkins, with the Dolphins, they probably keep him around. L'Jarius Sneed with the Chiefs, I think most of these guys will end up, with the teams they're currently on. But when the running back position, I do think we're going to see some changes. Those are going to be some of the bigger names that switch teams. And now I'm looking at this list and I'm like, Danielle Hunter, he wasn't too happy with the Vikings last year. Now he's a free agent, and he is a beast on defense. I think if he doesn't stay with the Vikings, some team is going to be very, very happy with him.
Well, and I'll tell you, and shout out to JT the Brick, who covers the Raiders in Vegas. He mentioned it that, you want to hurt the Chiefs and stop the dynasty. You're not going to stop them Pat Mahomes isn't going anywhere. Travis Kelce's not going anywhere. They're not losing those key guys. Chris Jones could possibly get got because he's a free agent again, and somebody could throw real money at him to lure him away.
Right.
Same
That's
thing.
true.
Same thing with Snead. If you take those guys away from them, like really the Chris Jones, and he was just saying, and for JT to bring it up, and the reason I bring him up is he's been covering the Raiders forever, and he sees them up close all the time, like all of it. And he's like, that is the guy that runs that, that defense. Obviously, we know that, but what he's able to do, and especially these last couple of years.
I'll tell you, one thing that the Chiefs are able to do is give him the 3-peat pitch. No other team can do that. That's what I'm doing. Hey, Snead. Hey, Chris Jones. Let's go for that 3-peat. You know what I mean? And so the Raiders can't give him that. They can give him some money, but the guy's probably made a lot of money. He has a chance to go for a 3-peat with the Chiefs. I think he
wasn't even saying like the Raiders get him. He's just saying anybody else.
Okay.
No, he was saying if you want to stop the Chiefs, just anybody go get these guys. Anybody go sign Chris.
Right,
not
yeah.
the Raiders necessarily, which would be great if he would take it. But
there's no other team that can do that pitch, And if he decides to take the money with another team over chase that 3-peat, that I don't see that in Chris Jones. I was around him for about 5 minutes. All right, I know all about his personality, but no, I really don't. I don't see that. I see him signing with the Chiefs, but maybe you're right. Like, what do I know?
None of us know. It just depends. It really comes down to that. He's probably so he's a 2-time champion. He'd probably end up being a Hall of Fame player at some point. We'll be in the conversation as we get into it. So it's like, does he need the third one to solidify that? Maybe.
Hey, James, do they need more money?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's more about like maybe Dallas says, hey, we'll offer you a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Like, a lot of money.
That's like for the Vikings. If the Vikings somehow get outpitched, if some team offers Kirk Cousins just way like an absurd amount of money, then I think he leaves. But I think as long as the Vikings are willing to match any offer, like he's going to be in Minnesota. But maybe, like you're saying, if some team just gives Chris Jones a boatload of money, like maybe he does leave.
Yeah, I can completely see that. So I just want to mention that. I thought that was interesting. Another thing that was interesting was, and we'll get into it on the other side of the break, but the Cam Newton at the 7-on-7 camp. I mean, that just stuff shouldn't happen, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Also, Russell Wilson. Boy, oh boy, you know how much I love talking about it. We're going to bring him up as well. I think there's a few more other points on the NFL, and then after that, we'll jump into the NBA because, man, there's a lot going on.
Yes.
There is a lot going on. All right, so let's get into this. So Cam Newton, and so a lot of these guys sponsor and run like either like classes to make like high school and college kids better, or 7-on-7 teams, kind of like AAU basketball, but they sponsor these teams. So he took his team, and there's some other teams that got together in Alabama, through Alabama and Florida teams, to play 7-on-7 tournaments. There was prize money involved in this. I don't know if that's legal, but
okay,
there's prize money involved in this. But there was a scuffle, and these kids tried to fight Cam Newton. Did you see any of this?
I mean, I sent you the video, so I definitely did.
I guess
but
you did.
I didn't have all the info you just gave me. I just was like, hey, did you see that Cam video?
I had to dive into it a little bit. And what happened, what had happened was one of the coaches for the rival team that was in a tight game against Cam's team that he runs, that Cam's team won. Tight game, a lot of trash talking. It spilled over to after the game. That coach used to coach under Cam Newton on that squad.
Okay.
So there's prior history involved.
Right. Wait, Cam Newton's a trash talker?
No, you don't say.
No way.
Yeah. And he points out the obvious trash talk, too, and he will not back down. I understand why. He's 7'9", 380 pounds of chiseled steel. Like, I understand why he's like that. But for the fact these kids would, like, legit, a coach. Okay, so first off, the coach started. So a coach was in there and got involved. Those were adults. Then kids started ganging up on it. And I told you after I saw the video, is that Cam did a good job of keeping, like he didn't hit any kid underage because that would look horrible. And I think he grabbed people, was moving people, but he was keeping people at arm's length to not get hit and to not hit anybody until security came and broke it up. Like, I got a lot of respect for him because he could have just dominated these guys and like Hulk smashed them over and over and over again on the floor.
I'll tell you what, like there was a couple moments I think like right away, like the first contact, like you said, Cam grabs a kid, but like one of these kids run up, right? Because there's like 3 or 4 of them. I don't know how many exact kids actually get into it in the end, like actually participate in this scuffle. But he takes a punch right off the chin right away and just takes it, right? And then he goes, okay, well, let me drag this one kid, isolate him, I guess. I don't know what was going through his head, but he took that punch right away. And then later, another kid runs up and punches him, and he just takes that one. Like, again, like Cam, like you said, he's 7'9", that's what you said, but he's 6'5", and with that scarecrow hat, like 7 foot with that going on. That's funny, man, because I was gonna make another bad joke about because I didn't know what started it, and now that's more info than I've heard yet, and I was just like, it was probably the hat. Someone talked trash on his hat,
Probably.
and he was like, we got to get into it, but dude, Cam Newton's got to be one of the last people you pick a fight with.
You'd think, but these young kids don't care.
At that camp, he's definitely the last person you pick a fight with.
These young kids don't care. They got no respect for the elders. They really don't care. So, at any rate, it was that's just wild. I think Shannon Sharp mentioned it to Chad Johnson on Nightcap that the Manning brothers have been doing camps for 25 years and have never had anything like this happen.
Yeah.
They've had guys not show up. They've had people get drunk and get kicked out. They've had stuff like that happen. But they've never had a physical altercation where coaches and players were fighting other things happening. It was just very interesting.
It's weird though. In a way, Cam's going to make the most of this, right? He's going to be talking about it on his podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, he's in the news. That's a good thing for Cam. Cam, no publicity is bad publicity. And at first, I
he's
think
always in the
again,
news.
not to go into this too much, but at first, I was I wouldn't be surprised if Cam started it because you just never know. I didn't know. And again, I think he's kind of a confrontational dude in the past. There's, he's fought teammates. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely. All right, so talk about wanting to fight teammates. Yes, that's a segue. Pretty good one. Russell Wilson. If he was my teammate, I'd want to fight him.
Okay.
So other teammates wanted to fight him. This has been said.
All right.
He did a sit down with Brandon Marshall of I Am Athlete, and he said, now granted, I mean he wasn't asked this question specifically, but he was like, "Yeah, my goal is to win two Super Bowls in the next 5 years." That's and that hopefully it happens with Denver, but he wants to be wanted. I guess, but bro, everybody wants to win 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years. Everyone wants to win 3 Super Bowls in the next 3. What are we talking about here?
Right.
Why do you how specific? I want to win 2 in the next 5. I'm 35 years old. No team really wants me. They threatened to bench me or cut my salary, and I ran to the NFL Players Union like you should. So he did the right thing there, but I just don't see it.
So
the QBs in the league are continuing to get a lot better, a lot faster. I don't see a team in which Mr. Unlimited goes in and they beat the Chiefs or the Niners or the Bills, or the Ravens or the Lions, for that matter.
Right.
He's not. Where's he going that they're going to win 2 in the next 5?
Right. Again, I'm definitely not defending him because I think what you just said is how most people kind of reacted and think about this. They kind of, they laughed, right? Russell, really, you're going to win 2 championships, but he has won one, and his response was that he feels better than ever. So whether that's true or not,
he would have to because he wasn't that good when they won it.
But again, so when you are, you've proven, and he's a religious guy, believes in himself to the fullest. I feel the greater than I've ever felt. I am a champion. I've proven I can win. I believe in myself. But I was laughing a little bit. Really? You won maybe. I get that, but to now go to 2,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Come on, dude.
He sounds like a wash-up boxer that needs the money. Listen, that's the best I've ever felt. I feel great after being knocked out the last 5 fights. So it never ceases to amaze me his hubris of himself, of where he just doesn't relate to anything.
He's Mr. Unlimited. Why didn't he just say 5?
First when the story came out was that he said he wanted to win 2 in the next 2, and that's what I heard. I was like,
really?
What? So then I had to go in and I watched the interview, and that's not what he said.
Oh, okay.
He's like, I want to get 2 in the next 5. But somebody dyslexic probably put that out there, said 2 in the next 2, and I was like, oh, no,
But
that can't be.
You wouldn't put past Russell to say
I
that.
completely believed it, but because we had the show, I had to double check. We go double check our references to make sure. So it was just really interesting that he would say that. And of course, like I said, look at what C.J. Stroud did. How good he had of a season. You got Tua, the last couple of years. He's been really good. There's not a lot of places. Where's he going to go? New England? Okay, sure. Go ahead. You're not winning there, bro.
And honestly, a lot of people have talked about maybe he might even start having to think about being a backup on a team, right? So I get he's I want to be wanted, right? But either way, I was telling you, and we're kind of ties into the combine. I think we're going to see a Brock Purdy trend in the NFL.
Could happen.
If it hasn't already happened, I wouldn't be surprised if this already happened last year where teams started drafting quarterbacks with their 6th, 7th round picks, guys who have 2-3 years experience as a starter at a D1 school. I would do that. If it hasn't already started, that'll probably start where you just, hey, I have a 6th, 7th rounder. Let me take
Absolutely.
a quarterback, a position that is so valuable. And if we get the next Brock Purdy, that's huge. And that's bad news for the Russell Wilsons of the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And you got to look at it. Like Baker Mayfield's a free agent, and Tampa Bay probably wants to get him back, but maybe Atlanta wants him. Maybe New Orleans wants him. I heard New Orleans is going to restructure Derek Carr potentially. But I just don't see where there's a spot for a Russell Wilson to go where they gets plugged in and they're title contenders. I don't see where he gets plugged in and they're conference contenders, division contenders. I don't see anywhere where that exists because all the team, like Houston, they've gotten better. Where are you going to plug him in at? Indy, they drafted a guy and they still have another guy. Where are you going to put him at? You going to take him to Tennessee? Maybe Tennessee, although they're kind of restarting from scratch. We're going to let Derrick Henry go. They're going to let Tannehill go. That's another free agent quarterback out there is Tannehill.
I'll tell you what, if Kirk Cousins leaves the Vikings and Russell Wilson somehow ends up in a Vikings uniform, I'm taking the season off as a fan.
Me too.
I'm taking it off.
That would be horrible.